Hello, ladies, and welcome back to Women of Hemp. I am really excited about this interview today. We are doing an interview series called Smart Women of Hemp series, and this is where we interview smart women on topics that affect your cannabis or your hemp business. The series is Women of Hemp, and right now we're talking with women who've been working in the hemp industry to find out what we need to know in 2019 about hemp. My guest today is Scheril Murray Powell, Esquire. She's
Hello, guys.
And president of Green Sustainable Strong. Scheril has a really incredible resume, and I'm very much looking forward to digging into the agricultural and the legal side of hemp with her. She is the former director of federal affairs for the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. She is on the Hemp Pilot Program Advisory Board for the University of Florida. She's also president of consulting firm Green Sustainable Strong. In 2018, she was a recipient of Crohn's Foundation Blood, Sweat, and Tears Award. She is a graduate of Florida International University College of Law and a cannapreneur. Thank you so much for joining us today, Scheril. Welcome to.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be on this program. I really appreciate you having the vision to want to put women together, educating each other, inspiring each other, empowering each other, and letting us speak truth to power and be honest about some of the challenges that we face. Before this started, we were talking about, the things that we kind of turn our eyes away from as we're navigating this industry and the sacrifices that we make, but also there's a lot of things that we celebrate together as women. So I'm really honored to be on the program. I would love to share as much as possible. My life's pretty much an open book. As mentioned, I am an agricultural attorney as well as a cannabis attorney. There aren't that many of us, believe it or not. A lot of criminal cannabis attorneys come from the criminal space or, just straight other transactional stuff. But to be cannabis as well as agriculture, it just adds a different layer of, I think, appreciation for the plant as an agricultural commodity. It adds more frustration from the fact that you know how other commodities are treated. And then you look at the treatment for hemp, knowing all the beneficial things that it provides from a nutritional standpoint, from a medicinal standpoint, from an enterprise and opportunity standpoint. So, our job is to kind of push and force the law forward. I'm here today. I'm actually in the Capitol. I'm in DC. It's our Capitol. We are the people. When it says we the people, it really means that we are the people and we run things. So I make regular visits to remind our legislators, and most of them are on board with that, and they welcome us and they want to hear more. They want to be educated. So spent the day today with my client, Sunflora, also known as Your CBD Store. That's their brick and mortar brand. So we went from different legislators' offices. We went to Senator Rubio's office. We went to Congressman Yoho's office. Started out in Debbie Wasserman Schultz's office. Also made a trip to the USDA and got a really warm welcome there from some great people who are actually crafting, as we speak, the hemp regulations that follow the legislation. And beyond that, went to Congressman Al Lawson's office. So a really busy, crazy day, back and forth across town or in between buildings, but that's a part of why we're here. We have to force the law, and there's no better way to force the law forward but to show up. And when you can find, clients as an attorney that align with you on your values and your beliefs and your philanthropy and your social consciousness, and they want to do not only the work that helps them collect money, but history and changes opportunity for everyone, not just those of wealth or those of means or those with education. It's pretty amazing to experience that. And I'm really glad that I've got to this point in my life that I can choose who I work with versus who I don't work with if they are not aligned from a value standpoint. I'm grateful that through relationships, discovered the hemp plant, discovered medical marijuana and ganja, and have that relationship where I can educate others and I can appreciate that gift that was given to us from God, from the source, however you want to say it. It really is a gift, and we've underutilized it. Our bodies are telling us that we need it. Our endocannabinoid systems are screaming out for the plant to be incorporated into our lives. And, from an agricultural standpoint, our farmers need it. Just a high level, and I want to hear your questions to make sure that this is a comprehensive discussion. But, as an agriculturalist, we've taken a lot of hits recently. Like, first of all, we have a pest issue. I'm from the great state of Florida. That's where I live, between Tallahassee and West Palm Beach. And, we've had a lot of pests, a lot of new pests. We get about 30 new foreign pests per year. And those pests are devastating to our plants. Our avocado, we lost, 2,400 acres of avocado just from one beetle in a crate. So it's really challenging to overcome those things, especially as a farmer. And even though, the intention of the government is to help them, it may take a year, 2 years, 3 years before the programs are in place and subsidies are in place, relief is in place to really make a difference. And a lot of them close down their farms before that happens. We've seen that with the hurricane issues. So, we had Hurricane Irma over 2 years ago, and that disaster relief just is getting distributed. We had Hurricane Michael happen, and we have people fighting really hard for the appropriations so that we can help those farmers and aquaculturalists. So a lot of times when we talk about agriculture, we don't talk about aquaculture. We don't talk about, the plant life that exists in the sea and in the water and our oysters and things like that. So, hemp is beautiful in that it's a great way for our farmers to recover from those things that have devastated them. Our citrus industry has been on the decline for some time between hurricanes and psyllids and other, critters that are attacking our citrus industry. And then we have foreign competitors that are getting stronger and stronger and making it challenging for our tomato growers and our citrus growers to compete. So blueberry growers as well. So with that said, we turn to hemp, and I think it's just perfect timing. It's like a perfect storm that caused perfect timing for us to really look at how we can globally not only compete, but globally dominate. And the first part of that is eliminating the stigma so we can get started. So we can really run towards, take the leap and run towards, this opportunity that is in front of us.
Thank you, Scheril, for taking time out of your very busy schedule. It's pretty exciting that you're actually at the Capitol building talking to us about hemp. I don't know that that's ever happened on our show, so I know it hasn't. So that's really adds a great element to it. And that you've taken time to talk to us is really, really appreciated. So I'd actually like to start with something that you had mentioned when you were in your opening. Yes. And that is about empowerment. Yes. And we have really questioned, what does that mean to empower women? Because it's a nice concept, but what are the things that women actually need? What are the things that are actually going to move them forward in empowerment? And one of the things we've realized is knowledge and information and voice. Right. So one of the best ways to keep people oppressed is to keep them from speaking to each other. Right. You look at the old office situation where you were not allowed to talk about how much you made with your other coworkers, and that only benefited really the corporation, not the individual. Right. So when we're talking about hemp, and from a legal perspective, from a place where you actually have insight that the majority of us will never have, what do you see that we're empowered in? What do we need to know if we're going to choose this industry to make a career?
Yeah, I think we need to focus on self-education and reading in order to be knowledgeable first. So there are a lot of things that are put out there in the media. You know, you'll hear people say it's legal in all 50 states when they're talking about CBD. It's not. We're trying to get there. We need the help, but it's not, because, you know, states are empowered. You know, just based on federalism, you know, there's a separation where states are empowered. States can give certain authority to the federal government. The federal government can preempt certain state law. But when it comes to this particular topic, the states are empowered to decide whether it's legal or not legal in their particular state. The states are empowered to choose whether they want to participate in the pilot programs that were legalized with the Farm Bill of 2014. The USDA, of course, has said that they're extending the 2014 provisions because they need time to get the rules together for the 2018 provisions. So we're still operating under the 2014 provisions, but we need to educate ourselves. And when we hear a statistic or a soundbite, we need to question it and challenge it and read for ourselves and do the research. I think another part of that is, and I really wholeheartedly believe in this, it's very important that we join organizations with like-minded people. There's so much further that we can go in unity and progress and advance. You know, that's my new mantra, is really shifting our focus from correcting to advancing, because sometimes we get, you know, caught up in like the correction part. So it's like, oh man, the law didn't say this, now we have to correct it next term. Well, let's look at what could really be revolutionary. Let's really look at advancement versus just looking at correcting something that we wanted last time. So when we join together as a unit, and just like this program, when we align, that's empowering. Sometimes people think empowerment and they think individualistic thoughts, solo silos, in order to be empowered or be powerful. But I think you find your greatest empowering experiences when you are aligned with people who believe as you do and march forward. So especially for women, because a lot of times we operate in isolation, and we feel like we're the only ones going through what the particular thing we're going through, and almost take solace in that. And I think the way forward is really having honest conversations like, yeah, you know, my bank account isn't like cha-ching. My bank account is looking sad, but it's because of this. Or what are the ways you're looking at for increasing your income? Or how did you get here? And not being afraid to share your journey and how you got to a particular place, because it took you so long to get there. So you don't want to, like, you know, sometimes we get caught up in, well, I had to do the work, so why shouldn't you? But true empowerment is really, you know, being stepping stones for each other. So I did the work, so you won't have to. But there's a level of respect to that too. It's not where it's a one-sided thing where one person is taking from the other, but it's like, let's be catalysts for each other. So I got to this point by myself, but with you and your ideas, let's fuel the movement to go to a whole higher place that neither one of us could get to on our own. And I find that to be extremely empowering. Anyone who knows me.
How do you think we can do that with hemp? What are some ways that we as women can do this around hemp in particular, now that we aren't saddled with the regulatory restrictions that many of us were in cannabis?
Yeah, I think looking at cooperative. So again, when you look at the industry of hemp, there are a lot of decisions that need to be made. So there's the, you know, what part of the industry do I want to be on? Do I want to cultivate, you know, and be in that space? Do I want to broker deals? Do I want to, you know, be a processor, or do I want to formulate and manufacture? Do I want to sell CBD products? Do I want to, you know, have a store? Do I want to be online? Or, you know, or do I want to do grain? Or do I want to get into the construction side of things? It's very difficult without making those decisions to determine what the way forward is. But how we can definitely unite is, once we make key decisions, finding other people who made similar key decisions. So, you know, if you make a decision like, you know what, hempcrete's really what appeals to me. Construction materials appeals to me. That's my thing. I'm going to go to all the trade shows, blah, 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 try to find people and women who are thinking on a similar pattern. And the CBD side, which is about 85% of what our planned use of hemp is at this point, it is the most profitable output right now, so that's why it's so popular. But with that, there's a lot of ways for us to collaborate. So if you do pick cultivation as your path, look at collaboratives, cooperatives, and figure out how you can educate other women so that you guys help each other. Whether it's, sometimes it's just simple as your watering schedule, or, it can be just that simple as coordinating that, or, getting to the processing part, or sharing legal fees for contract reviews as you're selling your raw materials. Like, okay, well, we found a good attorney, let's kind of pool our money, and then we'll use this attorney for all of our contract reviews and things like that. So there's so many ways if we just kind of step back and stop running forward as fast, and really have certain checkpoints. Like, we're going to move fast. Have some checkpoints where you say, hey, who's next to me? Who's next to me on my left? Who's next to me on my right? Who's directly behind me? And what can we do? And also look at the person who's ahead of you and say, that's what inspires. Not the person ahead of me is what aggravates me, or how they get there, or why did they get that, or why not me? But really, the person in front of you inspires. The woman in front of you inspires, and you celebrate. The closer you get to the people that you are celebrating, the closer that victory is to you.
Yes.
And a lot of times, there's two ways of thinking about things. There's like, we need to stop giving medals for participation. I agree with that, but I also agree with the fact that not everyone's going to be first place. When you
Yes.
go,
Yes.
And it's okay to be in your space, not in first place, but doing great work that you're extremely proud of, that you utilize your skills and you have a hand back helping others. Sometimes if you negate the people to the left of you, the people to the right to you, the people behind you, and you push forward, you can end up in first place, but
at what cost?
Isn't it more at what cost? And isn't it more rewarding to have like a group of you moving forward where you start a whole economic, change within your group, or prosperity within your group. When I was with the Department of Agriculture, I spent a lot of time with the Florida Citrus Mutual guys, and amazing farmers, like multi-generational farmers, like and there was one group of farmers who grew citrus, and they had no paperwork. And they've been supporting each other as far as buying and processing oranges for as long as they could remember, with no documentation between them. But before that, their fathers had the same agreement. So they're doing extremely well, as you do in citrus. They've had the highs and lows of citrus, but again, they have wealth, they have satisfaction, they get to farm, which they're farmers, they enjoy that, and they do it with their close, if not best friends. But
yeah, that's a very interesting point that you make. My husband is in agriculture, and it's really interesting because when you're working with a living commodity,
yes,
you've got a farm that has a bug infestation or bug pressure,
right?
And you lose your crop, you still need to satisfy the POs that you have promised to deliver. So
right.
You have to go to your competition, and they know that they can be in that same situation as well. So they have, by virtue of survival, actually created a network of support where, yes, they recognize their competition, but they also understand they are inextricably linked.
Yes, exactly.
They depend on each other. So they want everyone to survive. And I think that we have a lot that we can learn from that. We have two comments I just want to share with you. One is from Grace Parker. She says, yes, go Scheril.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Cheerleader in the audience.
No, I appreciate that.
And Colette Florido says, one way we can work together to advance could be with alliances of complementary products or services. So she's basically reiterating what it is that you're saying.
And she's a brilliant woman in her own right. So
Yes.
So I celebrate Colette. We've had a lot of good talks, and she's always innovating with her product line. She's a line of CBD products, and she was really targeted to the aging community and empowering women and getting as many salespeople as possible, but making sure that before she wins, her salespeople wins. And I think that's also a good point as far as leadership. Having those models where it's a woman-owned organization. For the most part, she's trying to empower and give opportunity to other women, and they're helping a community that's underserved, which is the aging community, in a healthy way. But she also does education and has a podcast program where she's doing all these interviews. So she doesn't have to do that, but she's getting the information out beyond that. Of course, her bottom line will benefit because it gets her branding out too. But it's a whole system of empowerment. And when I get something and I fine tune what I'm doing, I'm going to replicate that and educate another person, woman, on this is the system. You stick to this program, you stick to the system, you'll be successful, and I will assist you. Of course, I'm going to benefit as well. But the further down the chain that we help and assist each other, the more rewarding it is, the more we can live with ourselves, and the greater the industry becomes. Because if you have a roadmap and a strategy that works, and you can get other people following that strategy, overall everyone wins, including the patients. Like sometimes we're like, oh, those bad actors, whatever. But what are we doing to minimize the bad actors? Not from just telling on them or complaining about them, but really setting up these systems and practices that can be easily shared and replicated.
Great. So let's dig in a little bit more to the hemp industry specifically.
Yes.
Let's talk about some of these gray areas. When you were introducing yourself, you talked about the fact that, we all know that there is this issue. Is it legal? Isn't it legal? What states is it legal in? How do we approach it? So in addition to that, what are some of the other legal ambiguities, gray areas, or confusing places that you can maybe help highlight or enlighten us on?
No, absolutely. I think that's really good. And I'll be spending a lot of time talking about that in my lightning talk at Women Grow as well. So this is really like a prequel to that discussion at the Women Grow Leadership Summit from June 7th to the 9th. I think it's Friday, so the lightning talks are. But, for this conversation, as far as gray areas, I think it's really important to first start about where are we? Right now, from a hemp perspective, we had some bipartisan champions that helped us get to this point. So we have, Mitch McConnell and out of Kentucky really demanding that the Farm Bill doesn't pass without hemp provisions. We have the, U.S. Hemp Roundtable, who actually the past 2 days, I was with the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. So they're also champions. They pool their money together to set up lobbyists across all over the country at problematic states and educate legislators so we get good legislation. So as where we are is we spent some time under the hemp, the Farm Bill of 2014, where we first got that definition, identification as, industrial hemp is going to be considered different from marijuana. That's what we got in 2014. Industrial hemp is defined as less than 0.3% THC. Industrial hemp is defined based on its sourcing. So if that 0.3% did not come from one of these hemp pilot programs that are authorized by the State Department of Agriculture in coordination with the universities as a part of a research program, then it's not industrial hemp. Even if the THC percentage is right, it turns on the sourcing and it turns on the THC percentage as far as the definition that happened there. Now, what was gray at that time was when you say it allows for market research, doesn't mean that full commercialization. Well, us as an industry, we took it as such, and it's important for patients for us to have that interpretation. But there are other people who didn't interpret it the same way. When that first happened in 2014, 2015, a lot of the municipalities and the state legislators really didn't know much about it. So it was kind of like they didn't have an opinion whatsoever. as far as what hemp was. And if they did, most likely it was based on like reefer madness, that historical, stigma, brainwashing, programming that happened. So the people who really came out first with CBD brands did a lot of work in educating people so that we know what industrial hemp is, or we know what hemp is, and know that it's different from marijuana. And that work still continues today, but we're a lot further than we were. So once people got more informed, then we started to see more enforcement as well. So this industry started kind of running, and then we went from like 3 CBD companies to thousands. But then when the municipality started kind of researching and figuring out, we need to know more about this. And then also at the same time, in a parallel plane, you had marijuana legislation being put in place in some of these states as well. And indirectly, inadvertently, by mistake, a lot of these definitions for marijuana included hemp because they used the most broad federal description of marijuana, which is, all parts of the plant cannabis sativa, taking the language from the Controlled Substance Act and inadvertently included hemp in that. And that was catastrophic for the industry. The industry is still growing, but when something like that happens, it's really for the leadership of the industry and the leadership for government who know better to speak out and say, that was a mistake. We never had a discussion on the floor where we were like, hey, we're going to expressly put that hemp is illegal in our state. It didn't happen. It was something that happened by accident because they were trying to do their marijuana legislation. But some people ride out on that, and then they say, oh, it's illegal because it's wrapped up in this definition of marijuana, but it was never intended to be that way. But some people benefit from those types of delays in clarity. So now that we have the Farm Bill of 2018, we have that clarity with the complete, descheduling of it. But we're now looking at the laws that were made in times of confusion, state by state by state, with good intentions of trying to use the most broad definition of the plant for marijuana legislation. But we're still, even though we have federally, it's federally legal, federally descheduled, and nobody is saying, or people in the legislatures aren't saying, we want CBD, we want hemp to be illegal. They're not saying that. They just have to fix that old legislation that wasn't supposed to be in place in the first place. It was never supposed to be that way. What's the collateral damage of that? There are people, like the last maybe 2 years of my work, I spent a lot of time doing CBD defense. So what that looks like for me is me, hearing about, and I spent 3 years with Green Roads, one of the largest CBD companies, #1 CBD oil. They've had a lot of accolades. So, something will come up our pipeline is from one of our sales reps or a customer or a wholesaler selling your product, and they'll say, hey, I got my product seized or I got arrested. There were fortunately, there were very, very, very few arrests, only like Nebraska, one here and there. So it wasn't like a whole slew of arrests, but then we would get it. And then I'd have to fly out there to work with local counsel because I'm barred in Florida, just to help them win that case or get it dismissed or educate from the law enforcement all the way to the prosecutors. And those were like the darkest times because, at the end of the day, it's a soundbite, it's a news story. It's like, shocks the consciousness, but there's somebody who's like, I never committed a crime ever in my life. And I know this works. In fact, I take it or my family takes it, my kid takes it. And that's how they stay alive. But I might go to jail for that.
And how long have you been doing this? What year did you start?
Over 3 years.
Presently? Yeah,
about 3 years going on 4 years.
And you're still doing it today?
And I'm still doing it today. So my job now is, it's varied. I have a CBD company, Sunflower, that I am their in-house counsel. So I'm a salaried person. I'm part of their team. I'm part of their family. We're building an infrastructure, and we're trying to get really high quality product out to people and educate. We want the whole industry to win. We don't want just everything for ourselves. It's really about people being able to make informed decisions, and also empowering entrepreneurs with our franchising model. So that's what we're about. But beyond that, I still do CBD defense work. I still talk to, city commissions if I need to. If I get a client and one thing when I have to respect, Sunflora for is when I joined them after I left the Department of Agriculture, they said, and we want you to still be free to do other work. They didn't say, you're working for us and that's it. They said, you can still take other clients, because they knew that when I was with the Department of Agriculture and I couldn't take their work because of the conflict, they knew that they had difficulty finding someone who did what I did. So because
it's a very unique set of skills.
Thank you. It is. And it comes with time and experience. And we're training up the next generation. I have law interns every single summer, usually from FAMU University and FIU University. I went to FIU, and FAMU's land grant 1890 historically Black university. So we're trying to build up the next generation. But I still talk to city commissions. I still help entrepreneurs get business licenses from cities that aren't not educated, or they're going based on bad information. And that's part of my work that I do. I do the lobbying to, going in Georgia for their hemp legislation, Alabama for their hemp legislation, Louisiana for their hemp legislation. Iowa just passed last week, or was it earlier this week or last week, for their legislation. So that's also part of the work that I do. I do one-on-one consultations with people just saying, I want to get into the industry. There's a lot of different ways that I operate in this space, and I do the marijuana stuff as well. So I'm general counsel for Minorities for Medical Marijuana. I'm executive director for Black Farmers and Agriculturalists of Florida, and in-house for Sunflora. Wow. And I also am on the Hemp Pilot Advisory Board. But they all kind of work together because I only work for people who have a social consciousness. And that's the thing I want to share with a lot of women. We try to figure out what success means. And, success for me, I don't have tons of money in the bank, but for me, it's being able to choose my work.
Oh, the work you do is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's pioneering. And, honestly, the pioneers are really not usually the ones that end up with lots and lots of money, but it's a way more exciting life, isn't it?
True story. It's really exciting, and helping people is really important. Being a part of history is important. There's a certain amount of pride in knowing that, I know Mary Lynn from Patients Out of Time, and I respect her and she respects me. And, when we, it's the beautiful thing about our industries, when we all get together, it really is a celebration of how far we've come. And we give regard to those old heads, those people like, Bobby Tuna, who did 30 years in jail for marijuana, doing what people are legally doing for licenses if they have enough money to pay for a license. But back to discussing women in the space, I really want to go back to the point of we're running a race, and those in front of us need to inspire us and not be seen as competitors or the enemy. It's really showing us what is possible. The person who's leading the pack will make you think, what, if they can do it, then that's possible. If they can do it, and it's just like sprinting, I'm Jamaican, we're all into the sprint races and everything in the Olympics and all that. We're known for our racers, but we're always setting records. But once somebody sets a new record, it's like, didn't even know that was possible. Possible.
We're very fortunate in cannabis that we have such a plethora of really incredible women who've stepped up into the role of leadership. We've got a lot of examples of what can be done, and from all different sectors of both marijuana and hemp, as well as CBD. So it's inspiring. I mean, I'm constantly being inspired by other women. We do have two more comments. One, a question from Colette. How do you confirm they are part of the state authorized hemp pilot program? Is there a certificate they should hold?
Okay, so yes, so every state has their own pilot program. That's the challenging part. But when you're trying to investigate your sourcing, I suggest, as much as you can, go out to the source itself. You have to do your testing as well. But They should have some type of certificate or permit that they are a part of a pilot program in their particular state. So that's what you look for. That's what you ask for. That proof that they are a part of the actual pilot program. And sometimes they're given annually. So you need to make sure that the dates match the dates that you're operating in. So are you currently a pilot participant? And making sure that you can see that in the sourcing. And they should expect you to ask for a certificate of origin and a certificate of analysis. That should be expected. That's just common. And then if as we grow and innovate as an industry, there's some exciting things happening right now. I know the guys out at Evio Labs office in Davie. They also run Evio in Colorado as well. And they're coming up with a hemp institute. So through this hemp institute, it'll be a place like almost like a clearinghouse for hemp transactions, because there's so much fraud out there. And they will get the certificates of origin. They will do the analytics themselves, so that it's not a fake report that you're looking at, and they will also take possession of the funds. So so then they'll send one to the other party, and so the money to the party who had the hemp, and then the hemp to the party that had the money, and do that in a safe way that we're not risking the fraudulent situation. So I talked to Chris Martinez maybe about 3 weeks ago about that, and it's something that they're coming up with. So please look out for that from Evio Labs. There's a safe place where you can know what you're paying for is what you're getting, and that the testing is done right there with them, and they are credible. So I think we'll see more of those things happening across the country, where you can really validate this is a legit permit, not something that someone has used whiteout. A lot of times the departments of agriculture will list the people who have gotten approved licenses. They'll submit the list, they'll put it in the media, and they'll also post it on their website. So you can say, this is your farm name, you are the applicant and the approved license holder, and then you'll see it online and verify that person is who they say they are.
We really need more third-party verification in both marijuana and hemp. I had not thought about it yet in hemp, but the need for it is so much greater, because something that is reaching everybody nationwide, and there is so much mystery around how I understand what brand to choose, what questions do I ask. By looking at the label, you don't have any idea where they source their material, but it's really critical to understand. I've had so many people say to me, I tried that CBD thing, it doesn't work. Hey, you don't just try a CBD brand, Right. I mean, that's awesome. And please let us know when they are available, so that we can engage with them and help the women in our industry have that as backup and validation for their good work. I just want to read you, we've got 2 more comments for you. Another one from Grace Parker. She says, you're such a great example for Florida. Thank you for all you do.
I appreciate it. I love Florida. From high school on, that's been my home, and there's so much talent there. We've kind of made a good transition from the illicit market into the legal market, and we're leading the nation in a lot of things. I give kudos to Colorado, California, Oregon, Kentucky, all the states that are also doing great things, but I'm extremely proud of what we're doing in Florida. Like even working with the University of Florida pilot program on their advisory board, when I talk to those scientists and just hear their intentions to make sure that this has to be true research. We are not biased or affected by financials whatsoever. It's just for research that'll be published, that'll help farmers grow a crop that used to be grown here, but we just need to learn more about it all over again in this climate, in this environment. So a lot of respect from the people from Sea to Sail in Florida. Absolutely.
So Jasmine Hicks says, thank you for all your work and your representation.
Thank you so much, Jasmine.
And I want to go back and touch on what you said. Here in California, there are people who are working with dairy farmers to enlighten them about the benefits of growing hemp. Can you talk a little bit about, from an agriculture perspective, what hemp could mean to our country, to agriculture as a whole, and the opportunity that we have there to revitalize some family farms?
So when it comes to hemp, you've heard the statistic, there are 50,000 uses for hemp. The beauty of it is, you can use hemp to make naturally occurring nutrition, naturally occurring medicine that's very helpful. Our bodies need it, as I mentioned before. You know, the thing about hemp is, like, there's so many different stages between, you know, a seed all the way to beyond sale to I'm going to say all the way to consumption, because there, you know, so when we look at the seed, there's, you know, certified seeds, there's the sale of seeds, there's the identification of seeds, there's the adjustments or modifying of seeds that's happening. I know some people aren't friendly to that, but there's the modifying of seeds, and that's just looking at seeds. There's research related to seeds. Then, you know, when you have a plant, you have clones. You can sell. There's some people who just sell clones. That's all they do is they get their babies from the mother and they sell them. You know, and that's a whole industry, just selling clones that are exactly like the mother. So you're ensured that you're going to get the same genetics over and over and over again once that strain is stabilized. That's an enterprise in itself. Then when you are, you know, growing to just the act of cultivation is a job. You can just consult based on the act of consultation. You know, growing to a full plant, there's the testing aspect of it. That's a whole business, being able to test it, and then understanding how to change that plant into a product or commodity. You know, there's the chicken and egg approach. You know, do we plant specific to what we want to, who we want to sell to, or do we just plant and then we find somebody to sell to after? Both approaches work. There's some people who plant specifically for a particular buyer. The buyer gives them the genetics, and that's all they sell. That's all they grow. And then there's some people who are like, I got some seeds from somebody donated seeds, or I bought seeds from Department of Ag or whatever, and I'm going to grow, and I know I'll find a buyer, or I'll find a broker to find a buyer, or I'll go to conferences, meet somebody who will be willing to buy it when it's full grown. So many different ways, so many different approaches. When you come to the CBD side, there's, you know, the crude raw material market, selling and brokering and making deals around that, testing it. That's a whole enterprise in itself. Some people just do that part, you know, and then there's taking that crude raw product and transitioning it into a plethora of things. So a cake, a gummy, just an oil that highlights CBG and CBDV and different cannabinoids, you know, cosmetics and beauty products and age-defying products. So much that you can do from that same vat of crude oil. It's, you know, as you get to the process of manufacturing and figuring out what you want to sell. And then when it's a finished good product, someone else can step in, and that's all they do is they hustle finished products. And they create a story around a finished product and how it's going to change someone's life. You know, again, there's the consultants at different parts, and then there's the you know, wellness consultants too, who identify the right products for a particular patient, so they can make good choices in what they're putting into their body. So that's just, you know, that was one CBD approach to things. And then when you look at grains and animal feed and animal bedding and pet products, some CBD companies have a pet line, some don't. Some CBD companies just do pets. So there's so many different approaches to what you're going to do with this plant. And you know, you can grow just acres and acres and acres of it, and you won't run out of demand. You know, there are biomass deals. You know, there's no waste. All parts of the plants can be used for something.
And so do you see this as an opportunity for some of these farmers who are being either climate change is making it harder and harder for them to farm and be profitable, tariffs, changes in farm subsidies, demand for different types of foods? In California, you know, where labor is killing our farmers right now. So That's why a lot of them are even dairy. I mean, dairy is an industry is collapsing because people are turning away from dairy. So they're looking at having their dairy farmers here where I live start to plant hemp. The soil is perfect for it, and it would be a way for them to be able to recoup some money on their land.
Yeah,
is this something that you're seeing nationwide, that hemp
of course.
actually prop up a dying farm industry?
Yes, and that's how it's being positioned for legislation. So when the Farm Bill was being positioned with legislators, that was the selling point. Like, we have all these issues. We need something to give us a boost, and we need to stop. This is one thing we can clearly stop importing. We need to stop the mindset that we have to import hemp, because we've had hemp T-shirts around forever. Where are we getting those materials?
Hacky sacks.
Yeah, exactly, from out of the country. So it was really an education point to say, this is our argument. We're saying we can use this for the pest issue we can use this to remediate soil. So if we have soil that needs to be cleaned and purified, we can use this crop. We can use it as a cover crop in between crop rotations for other crops. We can use this for places that have had disaster, issues with disasters such as hurricanes and tornadoes and things, as something they can grow and then monetize quickly on a shorter cycle, like the timber issue in Florida. In North Florida and Southern Georgia. So in both of those states, I've been at their, ag hearings, Senate ag hearings, House ag hearings, and that's the topic of conversation. We want to make sure that those farmers that were hit by the disaster or the hurricane, that they have a clear, maybe even first opportunity with our ability to grow hemp. So absolutely, in response to your question, yeah, it is the industry or the commodity that can really breathe life into these farms before they have to close. Because these are a lot of times multi-generational farmers. What are they going to do? We already have aging farmers. We're already in a system where the farmers are average age like 55 years old. So their kids aren't getting into farming. I always say that hemp makes farming sexy. Hemp makes farming attractive. It makes people want to get into the industry and get back into farming. Also, all the people who have sent their children to school, and especially farmers, for scientific backgrounds or scientific areas, those kids can contribute to the farm. So you keep the farm in the family. They don't have to leave. They don't have to sell the farm when the parent passes away or gets too old to farm, because based on science and innovation, there's still a place for that family, those family members, to continue to, again, feed the nation, nourish the nation in a healthy way, and do it within their wheelhouse, within their skill set, and the education that they've gotten, which is an extra layer on the traditional farmer knowledge that they can get from their parents.
What are the groups that are organizing right now?
Sure.
Where, let's say, I do have a small farm. I've been growing organic food on it, but I really want to start growing hemp. Are there subsidies, supports, grants in place?
Not as yet. So no, there's a strong encouragement. I think the USDA is right to take their time to propagate the rules. I was there today. I was at the USDA office talking about hemp and the rules that are going to be developed. And I'm really excited about their strategies around getting the rules done by the end of 2019 or early fall of 2019 for the 2020 growing season. But I was maybe a couple months ago, it was February, I was in DC again at the NASDA meeting, National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, and I was one of the speakers on hemp. So to all the commissioners of agriculture, secretaries of agriculture, I was speaking to them as a 3-person panel about how should they come up with their programs for their states, and they're enthusiastic about it. They recognize that this is something that can change a lot of lives, and but they have concerns about, how close is it to marijuana? What if I've heard in a meeting, not that NASDA meeting, but a meeting, how much THC is in a truckload of hemp? It's too expensive to even extract it for THC. It's not good value on, for your money to actually try to take a truck full of hemp and then turn, so those are the kinds of conversations that we're having and will continue to have. But the good thing is people want to learn. People see the dollar signs. They hear the patient stories. And thank you to the brave patients that are going to your state capitals, to your city commissions, to the nation's capital. Again, I always say, I don't know what it takes for a mom to have a child that's constantly in the hospital and then also go beyond that and say, I'm going to help other moms and other kids and drive my behind to the state capitol to lobby there and drive and then fly to different states to educate and fly to the nation's capital, just to make sure that all kids have access to this if they need this, or all patients have access to it.
I completely agree. I got off in my head listening to you on another side note about patients and the need for their stories to be shared. And it's just a reminder that if you do have a story of how cannabis or CBD in particular has had a positive impact on you, it is really important that you share that with your congressman. Yes,
there's nothing that moves. And that's why cannabis is such a bipartisan issue, because we are all, we're not made out of stone. We're moved by those stories. Sometimes people just believe the narratives that have been spun and they haven't had the opportunity to hear the stories. But if you're sitting there and you're listening to these people who are in pain, who are worried about their child dying, who, they're one seizure away from death, you can't, with a conscience, not want to help them. And that's why those stories are important. And back to your question, I don't even think I answered your question, but as far as the subsidies and programs through the USDA, I think we're going to get in that environment soon. We need to give them the time to get their rules together. But right now they have explicitly said that crop insurance does not apply for hemp right now, and neither do grants. Yes, because they want time to do the rules. So we have to at least give them that. Now, if they come back and we don't like the rules, then we deal with that situation. But they deserve that time. We'd rather them do it. And this is exactly what I said at the NASDA meeting. We would rather them take the time, do it right the first time, than go back and forth for them changing it over and over again. So I'd rather give them the time to get it right. And unfortunately, during that time right now, we don't have access to the things that other commodities have access to.
Is the USDA open? Are they willing to work with you? Do they want to bring this program forward? Absolutely.
Especially the USDA, because they recognize what opportunity this is. And they have been, they listen to the commissioners of agriculture who are saying the same thing. They see the growth potential. They understand the issues with the pest issues and some of the things that we've had to overcome, the disaster issue. They really want to do it right. And because it was federally not sanctioned, they couldn't. Again, these are people in roles. We say the USDA, but it's like a person who's put in a position, and that person was not allowed to look at hemp, research hemp, think about hemp, because it just wasn't allowed. Now, they're on a learning curve, but with that learning curve, they are open to feedback. And I found that today when I was at the USDA, that they were very interested in learning about what the true experience is, and especially the technology part. And I was there with our chief science officer, Dr. Tony Ferreira. So he was sharing all types of studies and information, and they were just fascinated. And so I do think, I wouldn't say they're our enemy. In this industry, we're used to having a lot of enemies, but in this industry, we're used to having a lot of enemies, but I wouldn't consider the USDA to be one of those enemies at this time. Yeah.
It sounds like it's getting busy for you there at the Capitol.
It is. They're moving the room around, but that's fine. I'll keep talking to you guys.
So I have one last question for you on this topic, and that is, how do we need to participate? So if I'm a hemp farmer, if I'm a hemp product maker, if I'm interested in to, like, let's make this happen. What do I need to do? How do I participate with the USDA? Do I need to call them and tell them I'm in favor of it? How can I participate to make this work for me?
So I think I would say participate with the USDA and the FDA. I think when they have their public comment periods, that's really critical that you take part. I think you should also, if you can, come to DC, make an appointment, and come see if you can visit with the USDA. I think there's an opportunity. I think your greatest conduit is the State Department of Agriculture. So your Commissioner of Agriculture, you can't hear me? Hold on. So your State Department of Agriculture is the greatest connection to.
No, now your audio's.
Can you hear me?
Now I can, yes.
Okay. The State Departments of Agriculture are your greatest connection to the USDA. I think more important for you to understand is, because I know the USDA is open, but I think more important than that is your State Department of Agriculture open to hemp and hearing from you as a voice. And that you should have a clear measure on, because you call their office, you find out where you look at their speaking schedule. When you sign up for the USDA notifications, they'll tell you, Sonny Perdue, Secretary Perdue is going to be in Georgia and these 3 locations tomorrow morning. They're pretty transparent about where Secretary Perdue is going to be and their views on things. I find the USDA to be extremely accessible and open. But when it comes to your State Departments of Agriculture, I think you need to hold them accountable to not, I think, one thing I've been saying recently is we're a little tired of the photo op politician. We're tired of the press release politician. We have to remember that we are the people that vote them into office every time. And we can give and then we can take away. So we need to be informed constituents. And as informed constituents, we need to demand that they listen to us. And we demand that they are open to us. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think it's a good time to bring the interview to a close.
I'm so sorry for the noise. It's one of those things where I guess they're turning the room around and they're.
That's okay. It's life inside the Capitol building. I
think they could be quieter, but they're choosing not to be quieter, and that's okay too. Because when we're faced with those challenges, we just say, you know what, we're better. We just do better. We recognize the situation that we're placed in, and then when we're in a position of power to do something, we choose to be better. We choose to do it better, and we choose to do it in a kinder way instead of, again, knowing someone's on a call or video chat and you could be quieter. I mean, we have those opportunities every day. It's just really thinking about what we do and how we behave. And in our industry, we have those opportunities all the time. How do we respond to things? One thing, I do a lot of business development as well as the law piece for my clients. And I've done business development for some time. So one of the things first thing I insist every time is you got to set your values. You got to do your vision, your mission, your values. And then one value that I typically demand be included and that I learned from my days at T-Mobile. So I had a whole career before this. This is like my 3rd career now, is trust in the positive intentions of others. If you go through life and your career with that in mind, trusting in the positive intention of others, you won't drive yourself crazy thinking about, did they do this on purpose? Well, you assume they don't do it on purpose until you have clear evidence that they've done it on purpose. And then from there, you can say, I'm just going to move forward and stay mission driven on what I'm trying to accomplish right now in this moment. And then you won't be there in the next phase. Instead of, thinking about how you can get someone back or giving them attitude it's a waste of energy. We are mission driven. We have a great cause. We have a great philanthropy. We have been called to this purpose. And we need to stay focused on that, no matter who's surrounding us. And we have to make sure that we don't fall victim to the noise that is around it, whether it's literal noise or whether it's the noise of distractions and emotional distractions and people pulling you in different directions and gossip and things like that. It is counterproductive to this great mission of, number one, giving access to patients, getting patients access in a way that they feel like they are respected and that they have dignity and that we can celebrate more birthdays. That's what we're about. And that's why when we get together as an industry, it's all love. I love my Florida cannabis community. I love when I visit Vegas. I get so much love in Vegas and Denver. When I go everywhere, it's just one thing I can count on. When we come together, it's really about celebrating. There's some medicating, of course, but really about, this is how far we've come. We know we have a lot more work to do, but tonight we're just going to enjoy each other. And I'm going to leave with that as far as, I think it was a good lesson. Everything happens for a reason. I think the whole distraction and the noise, it's a good exercise in understanding that you're still in control. You control how you respond to the challenges in your life.
Absolutely.
And people feel like they're in a position of power to destroy what you're trying to create, but you can't give that power to anyone. And then when you have the opportunity, you show kindness and you're ensured victory because you do things that are consistent with your vision, your mission, and your values.
Oh, beautiful. Those are great words to close on. I just have one more comment I want to share with you.
Yeah, that's fun.
I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Charlana McKeithen. She says,
I love Charlana. She's up north. She's the Emperor MM family, yes.
She says, an amazing interview. Thank you. Love the closing remarks. It definitely applies to all that we do. So thank you so much, Scheril.
Thanks, Charlana. I'm looking forward to catching up with you soon. So definitely.
I definitely want to have you back on.
Whenever.
Get you in a quieter environment because I really want to dig in as we go further along in the process of legalization with hemp. There's going to be a lot of local USDA, state departments of agriculture, that we're going to be dealing with. A lot of different considerations in each state. So if we could have you back on at some point to really help us navigate through that state by state and federally, your information is just incredible.
I would love that. And one last thing is, like, as we've been asking for a long time to be treated like any other commodity, and now we need to know the other side of being treated like other commodities. So we had an example of a store seizure of pet products today, and then we had to call the Department of Agriculture for that particular state, and they said, oh no, that person did it in error. They shouldn't have taken your product. But then they said, but we also need you to start registering to sell pet products and things, so there's going to be some additional steps that agricultural products go through anyways that we're not familiar with because we've always been on the kind of the dark side. So it's going to be an interesting journey, and that's why I'm glad that I have the agricultural background as well as the cannabis background. But I'm excited to see what's next. I'm excited about learning more about how these commodities are treated, what paperwork what do you have to do to sell your carrots and for license? Like, all these things are going to reveal themselves to our cannabis industry, and as a result, we're going to be stronger and smarter and more brilliant because we'll know more about how other commodities are treated. So
I'm just going to close, I'm just sharing a picture of Scheril, hard at work in the fields, working with her farmers. As an ag attorney, I absolutely love this image. It is so sweet, and that's when
I was with the Department of Ag, and they have cracker cattle. Actually, that's on one of the Florida Department of Agricultural sites at the Connor Building, and they actually have these cattle that are the original cattle from Ponce de Leon that came over from Spain, cattle and horses, and they no longer have those horses in Spain in existence because they've been bred out. So the 500-year anniversary is actually coming up 2021. And they do an annual cracker cattle auction in October. So I'll be sharing that information on Facebook, and that's Stephen right there. So yeah, we take a lot of pride in our history in Florida, and our farmers, all they want to do is feed the nation. Honestly.
Thank you so much, Scheril. I look forward to sitting down with you again. Thank you for giving us time today. Ladies, thank you so much for tuning in to our Women of Hemp Smart Women series. Please stay tuned. We have more interviews coming up this week. Okay, thank you very much, Scheril. We'll talk to you soon.
Headed to the airport now. Bye, guys. All my love.